All right. There we are. YouTube's going to cooperate. We're streaming in less than 10 seconds. Check that out.
All right.
Welcome to Talking Heads, everyone. Episode 306, your once-weekly live show for the latest in beer and tech news. I'm Jeff.
I'm Chris.
Welcome to the show, everyone. Thank you all so much for joining us on this Wednesday night. If you've never seen the show before, we talk beer, we talk tech, we talk games, pop culture, entertainment, sometimes some Star Trek if the background didn't give it away. All super chats are read in the air so long as they will not permanently demonetize the channel. We do drink alcohol in the show, and if you're drinking along with us, alcoholic or not, let us know in the chat, and we'll give some early show shoutouts as we go along. Last but not least, if you like the content you see on the channel and want to help support us in what we do, think about joining the Patreon or heading on over to craftcomputing.store, grabbing yourself one of my made and designed in-house pint glasses or any of my other merch, and start drinking like a pro. Links are all down in the video description. Chris, this has been a long time coming.
I know, man. I saw you at LTX. We got to chat a little bit.
Yeah.
I'm glad we actually got on here and be able to, just kind of hang out.
Yeah.
It'd be great.
No, we've chatted at each other for years, and we got a couple of minutes at least at LTX to say hi,
Yeah.
but nothing really at length. So, hey, welcome on the channel. Great to finally
Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah.
This is great.
We got Gearling chiming in chat too. All the fun, all the fun guys are here. All right. So yeah, your first time on the show, and I was kind of explaining to you early on. We'll just throw some topics out there. We'll start chatting about them and kind of go wherever the conversation leads. That's usually how this show goes.
All right, let's do it. Let's do it.
But let's start the show the best way I know how, and that's by cracking a beer. And you're more than welcome to join me in that if you'd like. I've got one tonight from Hop Valley. It is the Stashadelica. It's an IPA. It's 7%. This is a fantastic local beer here in Bend, Oregon. Hop Valley, interesting thing about them, they were actually bought by InBev, so they're actually a Budweiser company. But they do a lot of really weird things with hops, and one of the things they're famous for is creating cryo hops, which is a freeze-dried hop pellet. Basically, they condense the hops down into this tiny little nugget form instead of having to inject hops into brews in various different ways. So just because someone's bought out by InBev doesn't mean they don't still do cool things. So,
Well, I'm actually on a health kick lately, so Fiji water for me. So that's kind of where I'm at. But I do drink like a lot of tea every once in a while, and then alcohol I've cut back.
Yep.
But I do let loose about once a month, and that's about it.
Yep. What's your go-to tea?
Right now it's whatever my wife buys, but there is this there was like Tiavana before they got bought out by Starbucks that was pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
And then they have like another shop that opened up and kind of emulated some of the teas they got, because whatever Starbucks bought, they pretty much just destroyed whatever formulas they had.
Right.
So loose leaf, Earl Grey, really good.
Yeah.
And from like a quality source, man, this delicious.
Can't go wrong with an Earl Grey. A couple years ago, my friend Rhett turned me on to Lapsang Sochong, loose leaf. And if you like whiskeys at all, it reminds me of a lot of the oakiness that you get out of whiskey. It's a real interesting flavor, and I've definitely been leaning that way for the last couple of years at least. So
like a healthy whiskey tea, I like it.
Exactly. Exactly. Let's see. In the chat, we've got a couple to talk about. Let's see. Tech Guy is drinking a Wee Heavy by Reed City Brewing, clocking in at 13.5. Bringing out the big guns tonight. Holy crap. Let's see. John J. starting with banger number 8 by Lord Hobo. Imperial Double, which has a rating of 4 out of 5 on Untapped. Excellent. Williams got a glass of homemade mead tonight, estimated 12%. I do love a good mead.
Yeah. Reminds me of Renfest every time. I'm like, yes.
Yes. Richard's drinking some Dutch Brothers. Nothing wrong with that at all. Let's see. Oft Infinity's got a Down East Orange Creamsicle Ale, 5%. Hey, Colton's in the chat. Hardware Haven. Hello, Colton. Following along with a
Colton?
Co-op Ale Works Ice Chest IPA at 4.2. And they just keep coming. Hello, fellas. Hello, Rodrigo. Drinking another Three Floyds Lord High Fixer at 7%. It's an ale. Awesome. And I think Colton's apologizing for the 4.2 because he's got to get some work done tonight. But, my second beer is a non-alcoholic, so, you know.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah. Yeah, I've been really trying to explore some non-alcoholic beers lately, because
man, all I can think of is O'Doul's from back in the day, and then I mean, you taste that and you're like, oh.
There has been so much awesome innovation in non-alcoholic beers. If you've not heard of Athletic Brewing, they are out of California somewhere, I think.
Really?
But yeah, San Diego.
Okay.
They do nothing but alcoholic beers, alcoholic or non-alcoholic craft beers. And it's actually like good versions of good beers. Like they've got a Hefeweizen that's amazing. They've got an IPA that's fantastic. I had a coffee stout from them the other day. That was really, really good. But all of their beers are 0.5% or less.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Wow.
And genuinely good. Now, they're just as expensive as a craft beer. You'll still pay, you know,
Sure.
$7 for an 8-pack of them. But genuinely good beer. And yeah, that's actually what I've been taking to LAN parties lately, is I'll grab a couple of 8-packs of Athletic, because a lot of the LAN parties I go to are dry events. But, you know, I still like to have a beer, so why not a non-alcoholic?
That's awesome. I didn't know that was a thing.
Yeah, so yeah, we've moved on significantly from the O'Doul's days. Yes. There's also a company out of Germany called Klausthaller that does hop infused sparkling waters. So you get a lot of the, if you like IPAs and that style of beer, you get a lot of the hop flavor, and they do probably 8 or 10 different varieties of them. And again, genuinely good, and kind of scratches that itch if you're going on a health kick.
I've been pretty much going on that for last November. I ran into the doctor. The doctor's like, "Hey, you got to go work out." After you hit 40, it's just like all downhill from there. It's like, yeah. You gotta cut back, not eat so much fried food, and so I've been really going crazy with that.
I've been focusing on that in the last couple of years of my 30s. I'm not quite 40 yet, but I'm knocking on its door. Yeah, I will say I am down almost 20 pounds from a year ago. So
hell yeah, that's awesome, man.
So what was funny is until literally 30, I could do whatever I want, eat whatever I want, drink whatever I want. Never gained a pound in my life. 3 months before I turned 30, I gained 17 pounds in that quarter. And it's like,
well, it always works though.
Okay.
I think everybody does that.
Right. It's like, okay, the metabolism has run its course. I guess I need to start paying attention. And then over the course of my 30s, gained like another 35 pounds, 40 pounds. And it's like,
it goes in phases.
It's time to start.
You get another one around 40 where it starts to kick into other gears and you're just like, oh man, really?
Yeah. But no, over the last year, I've been trying to get a head start on that to make sure I'm not. And like I said, I'm down 20, 22 pounds, something like that from
That's awesome,
so,
man.
Yeah, thank you. So hopefully we'll keep that train going. And,
yeah. I'm pretty fanatical about it these days, where I'm just like, okay, I will literally just cut out of work just so I can go work out, just so I make sure I get my usually 4 times a week for like a hard, like a hit workout, and then 7 days a week for just like cardio stuff.
Nice.
Light cardio.
Yeah. I got that's the one thing I need to start working in a little bit more. I usually only go for like a walk around my neighborhood once or twice a week. I'm not terribly active. So I'm not inactive, but
Yeah.
You know,
hey, we could all do better. We could all do better in that front.
Exactly. So, anyway, let's go ahead and get this show on the road. Starting with the review embargoes have lifted, and we have some performance news for Intel's Raptor Lake Refresh, which I don't know if there could be a more apt name. Wow. I haven't been this disappointed since Kaby Lake.
Well, yeah, I'm looking at the performance numbers here, and then I kind of was looking at buying an Intel machine because I've been AMD shop ever since really the Ryzen lineup happened.
Yeah.
And I was looking to switching back to Intel because in business, I typically always buy Intel. I just had better luck with it just in general.
Yeah.
And this last bit, I was like, maybe with this 14th gen, I would say at least the prices didn't skyrocket with it. So that's like the one like glass half full look of this.
Yeah. So basically there were 3 chips that dropped this week. There's the 14900K, the 14700K, and the 14600K. All of these are obviously the overclockable SKUs, the ones that are aimed at the gaming market and the enthusiast market in general. If you know the SKUs from the last generation, you know the 14900K and the 14600K didn't change at all, including performance. Like most review sites that I've gone to, they're saying maybe 1%, maybe 2% if you're really lucky. And that goes across the board for compute, workload, professional work, gaming. It doesn't matter. These are the same chips.
Oh man,
just flat out. There is a step up in the 14700K though, and that is the it was 16 core and 24 thread. It was the 8 core with 4 efficiency cores. So you got 8 cores and 16 threads of performance, and then 4 efficiency cores tacked onto the end of it. They bumped that up to a full 8 efficiency cores now. So it's now a 20 thread or 20 core, 28 thread CPU. It's a really weird number, but that actually could end up being a little gem out of all of this. 12 efficiency cores, not just 8. I was looking at the previous generation.
It's really weird ever since the Alder Lake series where they tacked on the efficiency cores, and you're just like, okay, so those are the single threaded, and then you got the performance cores with the hyper threading, and it's just like, I kind of hate it, but at the same time, it's done okay for performance. I mean, because AMD was just kicking them, so bad before then. I don't know how I feel about.
I kind of like,
obviously with this refresh, it's like,
yeah, I kind of like it. I like having some lower efficiency cores. Now, obviously, it all really depends on CPU scaling within whatever your operating system is. How are you actually going to divvy up the performance? Are you going to actually send your high performance tasks to the performance cores, and that's up to each individual developer? And how many cores can you use? And there's a whole other side to it. But the hardware in general has been pretty good. And so, Alder Lake really started coming around with that, and Alder Lake was a great answer to Zen 3. Finally, Intel finally responded and went, okay, we can actually double down on our performance. We can actually start matching AMD again. 13th gen, nice iterative update. 14th gen definitely feels like our
rebranded 13th gen.
Our tiles were not ready yet.
TSMC just didn't have them, so let's just slap a 14 on there.
Yeah, I genuinely wish they would have skipped the 14th gen as a name and given us a mid-cycle refresh. Given us a 13950K. They've done that before. They did that with 10th gen with what was it, the 10850K or something like that. And there's been a couple mid-cycle releases like that. We know tile architecture is coming to the mobile platform. That's already been announced, and it'll be out sometime early this next year. Seeing as that is the huge news of 14th gen, I wish they wouldn't have wasted the 14th gen name on their desktop product when it is literally the exact same product.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's Intel. Like I always think back to, you know, a lot of things about AMD with the compatibility of the motherboards. I would say at least Intel softened their stance a little bit on that, where it used to be they followed every single chipset with the generation. There was almost no backwards compatibility.
Right.
Where this, obviously, it'd be in the same chip. You can use like the 600 series with the new 14th gen.
Yeah.
And yeah, but I mean, yeah.
Yep.
I don't know, man. I don't know.
The problem is there's not a compelling upgrade scenario if you bought an Alder Lake chip, unless you bought like a 12400 i5 or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And you also happen to have a good enough motherboard to supply 300 watts and you wanted to buy a 14900K. If you've already got a 12400, there's not a lot of point to jumping up to the same SKU level on the newer generation. There's not generational improvements. There's not even a FinFET drop between those three generations. They're all Intel 7, 10 nanometer. You know, there's no incentive for buyers to do anything with their platforms, even though they technically can keep their same motherboards.
Yeah, I hear you, man. I like one of the big things when I switched over to Ryzen was mainly because of that. I had a motherboard go bad on me, and I just couldn't source any of that series anymore. It was all gone, and I was like, all right, well, I guess I have to buy a whole new CPU again.
Right.
So, yeah, that was one of the big pushings from going from Intel to AMD, and now I'm looking at Intel again, but obviously with this generation, not something that I'm like, I'm going to just jump right on that.
Right. I will say my two main desktops are, I've got a Zen 5950X. So it's the 16-core Zen 3. And then I've got I've also got a 13900K, and that's my other desktop. So I've got the top of both systems. I do have a 7900 X3D around here that I actually haven't been using. Which is weird.
Why would you not be using that?
It's because this desktop, so my streaming setup runs my Zen, and then my editing PC is running the Intel, and I just haven't wanted to swap either of those systems out because I'm kind of entrenched in all of my settings and it's one of those I just don't want to upgrade.
Yeah, I get it. I mean, if you had like a third gaming PC, that would be a great candidate for it.
Yeah, I do have a third PC that I use regularly, but it's on a desk upstairs in my living room. We set up a dual workstation upstairs, so my wife and I have a monitor and a little mini ITX desktop, and that's running. Gosh, I don't even remember what I think it's running an A520 motherboard and like a 6-core, like a 5600G or something like that, and an RTX 4060, and that's it.
Okay.
Just enough to sit in the living room, and it draws 200 watts at full tilt, so it's dead silent.
Yeah, what more can you ask? I mean, I've been really looking at my buddy at my work. He always rolls his eyes at me because I'm always like, I really want APUs to really kick off, because I'm pretty much a 1080p gamer. I know, shameful as that may sound, but I really want APUs to become a thing because most of my games kind of are on the older side of things and run at 1080 on most of my monitors here.
Yeah.
And I would love just to have no graphics card and just, I know this is blasphemy, I'm sorry, but I would just love that. Where I would just have a CPU and be able to play those games, 60, maybe 120, 144 FPS. That would be amazing.
Yeah. I don't know if you've kept up much with the mobile side of what Intel's doing with their tiles, but that actually might be possible with Intel Alchemist coming to the mobile chipsets as a tile. One of the constraining factors has been how much of the single wafer do you devote to graphics processing alongside your CPU? Well, now that they're splitting that off, they don't have to devote any of their wafer to dedicated graphics cores.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of thought that Intel Alchemist is going to be a huge benefit to Intel in the APU world moving forward. AMD's owned that roost since 2018 when they launched their Zen APUs, because they had
Vega.
The Vega 8, Vega 11 graphics processor already. They just had to shrink it down and fit it onto the die, and per watt, they just dominated Intel. Well, the problem is they never scaled up the number of compute units that they were devoting to that silicon. I've talked about this for years, and actually, I wonder if you remember this very specific Intel CPU. It was a collaborative effort with AMD to bring an APU with desktop graphics performance. It was
the Intel Phantom Canyon?
Skull Canyon.
Skull Canyon. That's right.
The 8809G. I have one.
Yeah.
I managed to find one years later. But yeah, AMD put a 20 compute unit Vega chip. So GTX 1060 trending 1070 level performance paired with a 6-core Intel i7.
Okay.
All on a single mobile chip. And there were 3 independent wafers on that chip.
And I think I messed with that system, and I remember it was kind of funky because I don't remember if there was another iGPU from Intel on there, and then you also had the AMD graphics on top of it.
Yes.
I remember it was a little bit weird because I remember setting it up, and I think I even tried to throw Linux on there, and it was all kinds of a headache for me. But I remember that was fun. I recently I got like a little mini PC, and it was the 7940, I think it was, the new AMD, because it has RDNA 3 on it. And I was like, hey, this might be it for the APUs. And then gaming was a little bit lackluster. I mean, it is struggling to get 1080p 60 for FPS and like Diablo.
I do a lot of the gaming handheld reviews. So I've done like the Aya Neos and 1X player and GPDs. And the 7840 and 7940Us are insanely powerful CPUs. The problem is there's still only 8 compute units of RDNA 3, but when you consider even like an RX 6400, which we malign as a $150 graphics card, has 36 compute units on it? Like, it's not even...
That's a big jump.
That's a big jump. And that's a graphics card that most of the gamer community went, no, I won't even touch that. So we're not exactly maximizing performance, and it's because even AMD with their chiplet design is still not devoting a chiplet to their graphics processor. The fact that Intel is making this leap first, and now they have a compelling product to put onto it that they don't have to rely on AMD for, I think that's going to be
maybe that's where they go. I don't see their Intel GPUs like gamers running out and buying those anytime soon. So maybe that was their whole game plan all along, was just to kind of pivot that model into I thought about getting one, and I was like, what? No, I'm not a hardware channel. What am I doing? No, Chris, just no. I know I'm going to get in Linux. So I'm just going to have all kinds of problems on the software side of things. But I mean, I love that they're trying, though. I do. I really do think it's a great for just the community all around. So I want to throw too much shade at them.
I've said that, and like any brand new platform, it's got its growing pains, and there's a lot of them, but at the same time, it is some compelling hardware, and it's so much better of an effort than we've seen out of Intel as far as graphics go in the past. I genuinely want to give them the chance, and I genuinely want them to succeed, because I'm tired of the duopolies that we have in tech. I'm tired of AMD and nVidia owning everything, and I'm tired of AMD and Intel owning the compute side of things. So
100%, man. Like I even bought a RISC-V processor for I think it was like Clockwork something rather. I forget what it is. It's like the iTerm. Oh, you got it over there, don't you?
I've got a RISC-V as well. I got the Vision 5.
Oh no, you got the. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I love that idea of it. I know the performance is going to be not great, but the thing I don't focus on a lot of times, a lot of people make fun of me because I might use like subpar hardware a lot of times, but I kind of like to MacGyver it up a little bit and then try and build around the hardware, the software side of things. And I think you can see that really, like, going back to the APUs a little bit, seeing like the Steam Deck and what it has done for the gaming space, and with almost no hardware. I mean, the hardware itself is not impressive.
Very
at all.
lackluster hardware. Yeah.
Right. But man, the software side of that is just fascinating to me to no end, and I absolutely love that. That idea of it. So yeah, it's really nice to see more innovation in the space, especially with RISC coming into the fold and all that. Man, I'm looking forward. I can't wait for the next 5 years.
Yeah, no, I mean, you mentioned the software side of the Steam Deck, and when the Steam Deck launched, that was actually my take on it. Is look, this hardware has existed forever, and in fact, there's been a couple of companies that have put together very similar devices. It's always been the software that has held these gaming systems back. The fact that the Steam Deck doesn't run Windows and is still compatible with 90% of the games inside the Steam library, and it's not a Linux enthusiast, you have to tweak it to no end and live with, a color palette being off or this game crashing every 5 minutes because you didn't have the right... It's literally a one-click install on every single game. That to me is insane. Just considering the amount of time that went into developing what came out of Wine and became Proton, DXVK, and all the other APIs that they're using. I know how it works.
They keep up with with the OS. It's really neat because they made it's Arch based, but it's all immutable, and it's just so neat how they've maintained it. And I was like, oh no, this is gonna break. After I got it and I had it for a month or two, I'm like, I'm just waiting for the update to come. I'm like, yeah, it's gonna happen any second now. And then it doesn't.
Yeah.
And it just keeps going. Even today, even before I jumped on, I had it. I was laying in bed for a little bit, got home from work, and I just pull out the Steam Deck, throw in a little 30 second 30-minute session, and then just set it to the side of my bed and then hop up, and I'm like, that is amazing. I love the portability of it and what it's capable of, and it's really doing wonders for the market.
Exactly.
And I just love to see it.
Yeah, so I've got the Steam Deck, and then like I said, I also review a fair number of handhelds as well. I have the Aya Neo 2 with the 6800U and RDNA 2. I've got two different 1X players with a 7840U. I've got GPD WinMax 2, which is my new daily driver laptop. It's a 10-inch laptop that has a 6800U and a 1600p screen. Oh my god, it's gorgeous. I still play the Steam Deck as much as the rest of those. Like those other handhelds have not accrued for more than 50% of my gaming time, because the Steam Deck just turns on and it just works.
Yeah, and it's good enough for most games, unless it's one of those most bleeding edge games like Cyberpunk on release didn't play all that great on the Steam Deck, and you'd go
still
for
doesn't.
Some high. Still doesn't. It still looks a little bit like a potato, but if you have a couple beers and then you're sitting down, it's good enough.
It's very cinematic at 20 FPS, let me tell you.
Yeah.
So
I think I tweaked mine to get 40-ish. You can get a golden 40 setup with Cyberpunk on the Steam Deck now, so you can make. But then again, I've done a couple modifications to the Steam Deck, so
yeah, a little extra something.
Yeah, a little extra something to give it a couple extra FPS.
Let's see. In other news, Intel has confirmed as of literally yesterday that Intel's 14th generation desktop processors will be the last of the Core I branding. Couldn't have happened on a worse refresh. The timing is perfect, because it really does sum up the Core I thing, because think of Intel's period of dominance when AMD was out of the game. It was 2009 through 2020, and that's when Core I lived.
I think it was during the bulldozer era of AMD. I think that was one of the last ones I bought, or maybe I think it was the FX chip. I can't remember, but it was in the late 2000s, and then I immediately moved over to AMD after the I series.
Yep.
And now it's kind of symbolic that the 14th gen is kind of like the last of the generation.
Yep.
And now, I mean, it's kind of funny they did that. They should have probably opened with that, with the different branding, so they actually have plausible deniability. Right.
Yeah. I mean, they could have just changed the name of 13th gen to Core Ultra, 13900K, and you're still putting a new name on an old product, and I think that'd be a little bit more forgivable than putting a new name on an old product and calling it a newer product, because that's what the whole 14th gen implies.
Yeah, I mean, I think they all do it there, so I guess it's just accepted practice. It's kind of like the whole debacle between them rebranding, like I think it was like this was the 6700 or no, it was the 6900 to the 7800 AMD chip.
Yeah,
and
there's been a lot of that through the years, but typically it comes back as a lower skewed product. And so with nVidia was famous for this back in your Fermi and your Maxwell days, because you had your 400 series Fermi, which became the 4080 Fermi became the 570 of the next generation. Your 670 GTX became the GTX 760. And people just kind of accepted it. It's second generation Kepler or second generation Fermi, and that's what it is. The problem is this is third generation Alder Lake. It loses some of its luster.
I mean, I hope it does better in the future on that front, but I don't think, unless there's like a third party that enters the situation that's really gonna put the screws to them, it almost feels like they're going back and forth, and they're like, well, this is just accepted practice,
right?
But
it happens in tech sometimes. It is what it is. But that's why you watch channels like us, and you find out if your money is worth something, and is something actually an upgrade. That's why we do reviews. That's why we put in the legwork, even though we know it's only going to be 1%. I'm happy to tell you it's only 1%, because I'm happy to save your money this generation.
Yeah. And that's great. I think that's the beauty of today, is people don't get as blindsided as they did 10, 15 years ago when they didn't have that.
Right. Remember review embargoes for magazines where a new product would come out and it was 3 weeks before you'd get independent reviews?
Mm-hmm. It was insane.
They'd put the embargo date as the 7th or something like that, knowing full well that publication was the 1st. And happened all
and you can
kind
of see some of that. I mean, like on the YouTube sphere thing, the thing I don't like is them putting specific embargoes. And one of the reasons, like, I don't ever do hardware reviews, or I really don't cover a lot of hardware, is because a lot of times companies will send you something and say, hey, you can do an unboxing at this date, but you can't do such and such. So then you're forced to basically give them a free ad, because that's what an unboxing is. There's no value in it, I don't think. And then you got the review after, and I think that's just a crime. I think that should be illegal.
Yeah. No, I am happy still to do reviews for launch days, but I agree to the tiered embargoes, but that means I'm producing one video for you.
True. Yeah.
I only do 2 videos per week. You're not taking up both my slots, one of them being a glorified unboxing. Look what all the reviewers got. Isn't that a neat looking box? No, it's not.
Yeah. I get it. I get it. I respect the game. I'm to that point where I'm like, okay, I've done this for about 5 years now. I understand it. And it's just like, okay, but then again, I'm still kind of like, I'm still part-time, so to speak.
Yeah. Well, let me tell you that the weirdest switch was going to full-time, because I worked for, I started my channel in 2017 and worked full-time that entire time up until the middle of 2020, when I resigned from my job and went, you know what, let's just take this full-time. Let's make this a job.
Yeah.
I did from right about the 6-month mark is when I decided I'm going to do 2 videos per week and a live show. And so started doing that, and I held to that release schedule all the way through the time that I worked. And then all of a sudden I had 50 bonus hours available per week. Now I produce about 1.5 videos per week and a live show. It's gone down, and I will say I do feel my quality's gone up significantly. The quality of the research, the quality of the writing, the time that I have to make everything look pretty, like that's definitely improved. But
well, I think that's just kind of goes with the nature of the beast too. Like as you're longer on YouTube, you almost get penalized if you're releasing really quick, like every single day kind of thing, rapid pace.
Right.
But it gives you a lot more time to think about the video and let it breathe, research it a little bit better, and make a better video a lot of times.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's for about a year after I went full time, I still kept to the two per week, like we're doing this hell or high water kind of thing. And then last year it started slipping a little bit, and I'm like, you know what, my viewership isn't going down, even though I'm only producing 6 videos per month instead of 8, or whatever the case may be. And I went, apparently the time that I've been spinning my wheels could have been better spent producing better videos. And so let's just start adjusting my schedule. And, if there's opportunities to do 2 per week at the quality that I'm doing them now, let's do that. If there's not, 1.
And that kind of where I've been on YouTube was I've kind of gotten to the point about a year or two ago. I'd say I have a pretty good content shift. And I think it was at the end of 2020, I did like the deep load script, and I started getting into scripting and programming a little bit. And I really started this past year to really pivot hard on that and really focus more on actually learning a lot more languages and get more into creating an actual program. Because I think at the end of the day, make maybe a couple videos a month on YouTube, but a lot of my time and effort would probably be spent more in the actual programming realm. And that's kind of where I see kind of my future, not necessarily going to like a media company like a Linus or somebody like that, because I don't like managing people. I'm not very good at it, and it just sounds like a lot of stress to me. So that's where I'm kind of like, I think I would prefer to just kind of keep doing the thing on YouTube, but also have kind of a more stable layer of like actual programming business on the side there, as like a platform, so to speak, or a foundation.
Yeah, absolutely. There's nothing wrong with still doing your own thing and doing YouTube, or, I worked for, 4 years while I was starting up the channel and whatnot. And I'm actually starting to now get back into, maybe I want to start doing server builds for companies and doing, some MSP style work, because I can still do that. There's nothing saying I can't. And so
like Tom Lawrence, he runs his own business. It's really kind of amazing what Tom does. I'm like, man, he's wild. He does some crazy like access point installs, and I'm like, that is awesome. And he just promotes it through YouTube, and I'm like, I love that. I love that design where you have kind of like the two balancing each other out, and I think you get a little bit better finger on the pulse of what's important for you, and it depends on how happy it makes you too.
Right, exactly. So anyway, today's video does have a sponsor. So let me go ahead and do that now. Today's episode of Talking Heads is brought to you by Antlion Audio and their full lineup of audio gear and accessories. I've personally never been a fan of gaming headsets, as I much prefer studio cans without all the RGB bells and whistles. The Antlion Mod Mic is a high-quality microphone that can attach to your favorite headphones, turning them into the ultimate combo for gaming or content creation. The Mod Mic Wireless also ditches the cord, transmitting over aptX, allowing for latency that's 5 times faster than Bluetooth. Regular viewers will also know that during live streams, I skip the cans and go for in-ear monitors, meaning Antlion's all-new Chimera IEMs are the combo rivaled only by whoever poured the first stout into a bourbon barrel. Available with either single or dual drivers, the handcrafted resin in-ear monitors deliver audiophile-approved quality with a flexible microphone that wraps around and behind your ear so it stays securely in place. Check out the full lineup of gear from Antlion Audio by following the links down in the video description. And again, a huge thanks to Antlion for sponsoring today's episode. Cool.
Well, I'm impressed.
The bills are paid.
It would have taken me like 20 takes on the sponsor spot.
We were talking before the show that I script all of my videos and you do all of yours off the hip. That's the one advantage of scripting your videos is you get really good at reading copy.
That's awesome.
You get really good at it. It was not a skill that I had before I started this, and being able to do live reads is kind of a weird tangential skill I never thought I would develop. But only stumbled once. So
I didn't even hear it.
Yeah. All right. Let's see. We do have some news relating to basically all of the big three, AMD, Intel, and NVIDIA. Before we get into the story, I'm going to say I'm not going to bring politics into this. I'm simply going to state this as a matter of fact that the US is embargoing certain products from shipping to China. We will not abide by any xenophobic comments in the chat. You have been warned. Mods, let them fly. All right. The US is restricting shipments of high-power GPUs to China amid concerns of basically burgeoning AI capabilities of nations that were not necessarily 100% friendly with all of the time. China's not the only one in this, but China's obviously the biggest one as the biggest country in the world. This edict is coming down to all three graphics card manufacturers, or at least all three desktop server-grade AI-accelerated graphics card manufacturers. That's AMD, Intel, and NVIDIA. There is essentially an embargo stating that they cannot ship high-end graphics cards to China unless the Chinese recipient has a license provided by the US government to receive those items. This includes graphics card like the RTX 4090, the A800, and the H800, which are their really big, like $40,000 and $80,000 AI compute graphics cards. Basically anything that's based on an AD102 in either the professional or consumer space from NVIDIA is not allowed. There's a full list from NVIDIA: the A100, A800, H100, H800, L40, L40S, and RTX 4090. For AMD, it's some of their, again, their higher end cards, and for Intel, it's both of their cards. It's the 750 and the 770. And also their server variants, which are coming out shortly, but are kind of out, but aren't really.
I mean, that's kind of interesting to me. Like, what's the end game there from U.S. standpoint? What are we afraid of for shipping those cards out to China, you think, when it comes to AI capabilities? Like, sure, it'll stunt that growth because they can't do a lot of the machine learning with that, but
I'm not sure. I'm not sure, because when we think of AI from a consumer and even a server standpoint of things, we're thinking, you know, image generation or
like Stable Diffusion or something like that.
Stable Diffusion. This could have so many different facets and reasons for the restriction. It could have things to do with they're afraid of deep fake news. And there's actually been a couple stories recently of them taking popular news anchors from like San Diego and New York and having them read stories that never existed. And having
that on like a social media platform and
exactly
causing chaos that way.
Right. Destabilization of populace by dissemination of false information. And the better you are at it, the more scary and believable it can be. I mean, we deal with the same thing with like email spoofs that there's some telltale signs that an email is not from the CEO requesting all of your social security numbers for your company from the last 5 years. But there's also some really good spear phishing out there that some people do fall through, even though they've gone through 2, 3, 4, 5 steps of who is this from? What this request that this person would make? Was it, Yeah,
I deal a lot with like a phishing with one of the clients I have, and it's it's gotten a lot better. Like as far as the phishing emails, you go back about 5 years, and the phishing emails is like, okay, come on, how did you fall for this? Come on, man, what are you doing? They didn't even get the right Microsoft logo. That's like from the 80s. It was
totally your
bad.
CEO at 123.com. Like,
yeah, exactly. But now I would say the phishing has gotten a lot more believable. So yes. I'm less likely to actually chastise a user for falling for phishing, which is kind of surprising to me. Did you see that Mr. Beast deep fake that he was like they used AI and deep fake Mr. Beast, and he was promoting like some kind of product? I think it was on TikTok or something.
I didn't hear that one, but the more recent one that I've heard of is Tom Hanks doing like some plumbing company or some crap like that. Yeah,
that is so wild.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm like fascinated by it. At the same time, I'm like, oh, geez, that's a little bit scary too.
It's a little terrifying.
Someone could just take your likeness and go, hey, and be like, I didn't endorse that, or it show up in the courts too.
Right. Some of my Discord users, as a YouTube semi-public personality who has a large amount of their voice available for training on the internet, they made a voice model of me that's frightening. Like a little uncanny valley thing going on, but at the same time, like, I can hear it's not necessarily my voice. I don't know if everyone would necessarily be able to tell it's not my voice, because it was delivered in a very normal cadence and something that is actually recognizable to me as the way that I speak.
Yeah, they know your speech patterns, and they can kind of hit those pauses and get the little nuances.
Exactly.
That's where a lot of it is detected. I think I did a Bill Gates one and punked one of my friends, and he thought that was pretty funny. But yeah, I think it's definitely interesting. I don't know where that's going. I don't know what the end game is. I don't think it's a military AI application they're really scared of.
I don't think so either.
From that,
I mean, the possibilities as far as that go are also kind of limitless and definitely above our pay grade. As far as AI, scanning maps for potential movements or doing this or doing that, like I mean. The common use for AI, other than image manipulation, has been looking for trends in businesses, identifying different logistical things within a business or trends with data. There's no reason that there can't be military applications for that as well. So I'm sure there's a little bit of a frightening aspect of, like, we don't know what they're building that we don't know. But at the end of the day, restricting 3 of your company's top exports to the largest countries in the world, that's going to hurt some bottom lines, regardless of state secrecy, regardless of right, wrong, justified.
Do you think, because China also has a history of like grabbing hardware products and then reverse engineering them and stealing, valuable IP. So it could be from that point where they might, they're scared they might get this hardware and then do exactly that and then steal the IP and then possibly reverse engineer it a little bit. Obviously, they can't do much from the chip generation or the chip manufacturing because all that goes to Taiwan for the most part.
Right.
But I did see, I think TSMC is building their first China factory too.
Yes.
Which is kind of weird.
Yeah. No, that's actually the exact point that I was going to bring up. Is I don't think they're fearing reverse engineering because Taiwan is already producing chips for all of these manufacturers, and so it's like, if you were worried about reverse engineering, we wouldn't be allowed to produce chips out of Taiwan, even though they're a sovereign state, even though we recognize them as a sovereign state. There's still weird ties with the whole China thing there. I don't think that's it.
Yeah. That's how time will tell, I guess, because, man, it's spooky. But yeah, definitely these next couple of years are going to be very interesting in that front.
Yeah. Elections coming up and all that, and who knows how information is going to be decided. I mean, we went from semi-believable or at least like, wow, that doesn't entirely suck when it comes to putting heads onto actors' bodies and making them sound like someone else. as I mentioned with my voice, we're getting into some uncanny valley territory where unless you actually know that person, unless you know, sideways and upside down their speech patterns, it might start to get really difficult to tell the real from the fake here very quickly.
Yeah, no doubt. I think we're almost already there. It's very, very close. It's only when it's video and speech with good lighting you can tell pretty quickly. But even then, there's instances where if it's set up properly, you can do it. Like I want to say one of the Fast and the Furious movies, they used like Paul Walker's brother after he passed to finishing the shot, and they just switched out his face at the end, so you couldn't even tell.
Right.
And I was like, that's insane.
Yeah. I mean, we've got Disney doing Grand Moff Tarkin and Princess Leia in movies, and whether you think that's right or wrong or justified or not.
I think it was like The Mandalorian when they did the Luke Skywalker reveal, and then everyone skewered him, and then one guy on YouTube made a better deep fake of Luke Skywalker, and then Disney ended up hiring.
Yeah, he works for them now.
Yeah, he works for them now, and I was like, "That's such a great story."
Yep.
On the happy side of things.
And what's funny is season 2 of Mandalorian also included a fair amount of Luke Skywalker. It was notably better.
Yeah, it was a lot.
Yeah. Speaking of things that are not necessarily notably better, YouTube is doubling down on their fight against ad blockers. And if you're watching this on Google Chrome, there's a really good chance that uBlock is going to be going away in the near future as a plugin for that browser. YouTube and Google Alphabet, whatever you want to call them, have started sending out nastygrams and live video interruptions, stating that using an ad blocker violates YouTube's terms of service, and you're going to be blocked for the next 90 minutes unless you disable your ad blocker.
I mean, this is one. I think even Louis Rosman, he actually programmed some other. It's like Vanced, except the like Revanced, I think is what it was, to get around it. There'll always be ways around it. I think Enderman, another YouTuber, even released anti-blocker for the blocker, to where it's just like, there'll always be ways around it. And when I look at my settings personally here, I do a pretty custom filter list on my YouTube because there's certain things that I really don't like. Short form media, I know a lot of content creators are always like, hey, YouTube Shorts and other stuff. I think it's just poison, and I just hate it. So I made a filter list that blocks all shorts, and it actually makes YouTube, it kind of takes it back in time a little bit before shorts, and I like that a lot better. So for me, I use a custom filter list, which you can actually do. I bet you could do it through like a Pi-hole, or if you got a PF Sense box, you could throw it on like PF Blocker and add those filter lists, and then all your YouTube will be like it was before shorts were even a thing. So there's always ways around this, but at the end of the day, I look at it, you should, a lot of people won't be able to do that. I think a lot of the less tech savvy people won't, and they'll just have to watch more ads. Yeah.
There's been a lot of backlash to this. I mean, obviously, people are frustrated with the not only having to watch ads, but the kinds of ads that show up on YouTube from time to time, the ad content. I don't let my kids watch YouTube. I've got, not quite teenager as my oldest, and they're not allowed on YouTube, even though dad's a YouTuber. Like, it seems like the dream job, and like, yeah, of course my kids are. No, they're not. Yeah, no. There's some really weird ads out there and some rabbit holes that you can get in rather quickly, of which I don't want the algorithm grabbing a hold of my kid. And just from a safety and like, no, we don't need to see Disney characters in compromising positions kind of thing. There's a lot of weird videos out there. But there's been a lot of... go ahead.
The thing I wonder most about this is this got put into effect, I want to say like 5 days ago or maybe a week ago. It started rolling out like a soft launch, so to speak. And the one thing I've noticed is maybe my viewership is just definitely a higher skill level, and most people probably use an ad blocker anyways.
Mm-hmm.
But from an ad perspective, my ad rates hadn't changed at all.
Flatline. Yep.
Just flatline. It's very steady. My viewership doesn't really deviate that much.
Yep.
It's very, hey, I know I'm going to get about 1.3 to 1.5 million views every single month.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a very easy thing to track for me. If more people are watching ads, I'm not seeing any more money from it.
Right.
So I don't know. I don't know. If that is the case, then I know some of my videos are more tailored. There's a couple Windows videos in there that I think is tailored definitely for a more layman that probably wouldn't be using an ad blocker. So you think those videos would be performing a lot better from a monetary standpoint. And I'm here to say, if they are making more money from ads, I don't think they're sharing it with the creators. It's too soon to tell, but I'm definitely keeping an eye on it. And I'm like, this is a little fishy. And then you had what was it, the manifest thing that they were putting in, I think manifest V3 again. I haven't really seen anything from that, and I think that went into effect in July. So it's a very tricky subject, and something that I'm like, it just kind of puts a bad taste in my mouth.
To be clear, I don't think YouTube's going anywhere until until someone steps up with the video distribution ability. There's really only two companies that could possibly do that, and that's Amazon and Pornhub. Like, those are the only two companies that have the infrastructure to compete, and neither one of them wants to. And so it's very clear that YouTube is going to be the de facto. If you want to watch free independent content, that's where you go. But that's a great point, that if this campaign is proving to be successful for YouTube, where's my 70% cut of that extra revenue that you're now generating? Because it's certainly not in my hands.
So I'm looking at that and I'm like, this is kind of odd. So I do see that, and I think it's like the 55-45 is what they promise, but it's just odd. It's always one of those things where I'm always a little bit iffy about full-time YouTube. I touched a little bit on that earlier. Just because I just don't trust Google. That, and I'm afraid they'll do something really stupid, and then that's my livelihood. But then again, it's Google. I mean, they're so big, they're too big to fail. So
as long as Elon doesn't buy them, I think they'll be all right.
So true.
I mean, it is my full-time job. I do worry about the future of YouTube, the popularity of YouTube, maybe fanning out at some point. The thing is, the content that I generate, it doesn't compete with short-form content, which means short-form content doesn't compete with me. Right. If you're looking to, build a Windows distribution server, I'm your guy. You're not going to do that 90 seconds at a time. And so a lot of my content is 15 to 20 minutes per video. TikTok's not going to destroy my revenue. It's just not. But the overall platform may kind of disintegrate the user base, and that I think is my overlying worry, is will they piss off enough users that people start finding other things to do with their free time that aren't here just for the edutainment, that are here for just the entertainment?
Well, I think I was talking to somebody today about that, because I always like kind of querying just regular folks. So I asked a coworker, was like, "Hey, what do you watch on YouTube? I'm just curious. What's your daily look like? I know you're not watching me on every upload, because I go all over the place. So somebody might pick one of my videos, and then there'll be like 3 videos down the line before they pick another one. And I get that, but usually people have like a habit, like a TV show they would watch, much like a YouTube channel. And he was kind of interesting. Like, he was like, a lot of my stuff is just search traffic. I kind of get on here, I search. There's a couple channels I catch every video, but that subscribe kind of mentality of yesteryear, I think, starting to leave a little bit, to where people aren't watching every upload from their favorite creator much anymore.
Mhm.
And a lot more is being probably search generation, because obviously, the second best search engine from Google would be YouTube.
Right.
And I look at my history and I was like, yeah, that's kind of interesting. That's kind of how I use YouTube as well. I don't really browse it that much anymore. There's a couple people I catch every video. Like Johnny Harris released a great like Facebook video on how like the mass genocide in like Miramar and that type of thing. That was really interesting, and I usually catch a lot of his videos, but there's very few creators I actually watch religiously anymore, where I think that used to be different like 2-3 years ago. It felt like it's shifted a little bit. And my recommends, my home screen, I rarely do that anymore, where it used to always give me new people that I really wanted to see, and it was more engaging and just interesting.
Yeah.
But anymore, a lot of times it's it's a mixed bag. A lot of times I'm like, the other day I made a tweet, I was just like, oh, this is hilarious, or I should say post now, sorry Elon.
But you zeeted.
Yeah, I zeeted it out. But it was like, I'm 30 and I'm depressed or something, and they like recommended that on my home field. I'm like, one, I'm not in my 30s, and two, I'm not depressed. Why is this getting recommended to me? The algorithm has gotten drunk.
Yeah. For me, I'm still kind of entrenched in that subscribe and watch feeds of different people that I like, different entertainers that I like. A lot of mine is, shockingly enough, not tech related, because I live in this environment and I want YouTube and my media to be an escape from what I'm doing. And so a lot of my content ends up being automotive YouTube, whether it's Watch JR Go or Superfast Matt or VinWiki or something like that. I do watch a lot of speed running, so I'll keep up on game speed running. There's been a couple of huge things with Mario 64 proving carpetless to be done with a human. So the 120 star record actually just fell the other day. If you're into that,
I saw an Ocarina speed run where they did it in 13 minutes or something. It was insane to see that done. So I get you. I could watch that for quite a long time. I think the original Super Mario Brothers actually had a speed run record recently too.
Yes,
which is kind of nuts.
God, I was just trying to remember who that, because there's Cosmic, and then there's like 2 or 3 or 4 other like big time Mario speedrunners. The big news was one of the other guys basically matched the TAS speedrun up until the last level, and then missed it by a couple of frames. And so he is like at frame perfect for the entire series up until the last level, and he missed it by like 2 frames. And so the 454, I think he got it down to 454.54, and the theoretical max is 454.3. So he's 2 frame cycles away.
Wow, that's insane. That's just insane to see that. But I mean, I think that's kind of cool. Like the speedrunning community, they have such a good replayability because they can stream all that, and as they're streaming, that's a good source for them to monetize, and then they can release the final product as they get a PR or a world record.
Right. I
think that's amazing. I love that. I love that community.
Yes. No, I love how large the speedrunning community has gotten really since 2020. Like that was kind of its moment in the sun, when during the midst of the pandemic and them canceling the show, Awesome Games on Quick and all that kind of stuff, they had just people just submit speedruns, and this little niche community kind of grew into this massive thing that everyone knows about now. And I love it because no matter what game you think you want to play or want to watch, someone has speedrun that game, and there are rules and entire communities devoted to it.
I love it. Actually, I think one of my third live stream I ever did on YouTube. I'd only been on YouTube for like 5 months. So this would have been 2019, and I did Fallout New Vegas speed run and did it like it was a pathetic speed run. It was like I think it was like 2.5 hours or something.
Yeah,
but I love that. It's fun. So much fun to do.
All right. Let's see. So I do have a second beer, and this one again, not quite a beer, but technically non-alcoholic. This is from Athletic Brewing. Soul Sour. It is a mango, lemon, and blueberry sour. I'm kind of looking forward to this one.
Oh man, you need a condenser mic so you can get the pop and then the pour.
Yeah.
Have a second mic set up for that.
For quite a few years, I actually did have a second mic over here, and I used a condenser. It was an MXL 990. Loved that microphone, and definitely has a little bit better audio quality than my shotgun, but this is just so much more darn convenient.
Yeah, I could see that. Did you, so like on your intro logo, did you record that audio, or is that just canned audio?
Those are samples. Yeah.
Yeah, I figured. Yeah.
It's
so clean.
It's really funny, the mix of sounds that I went through to get all of that together. There's the can pop sound. There's a whoosh sound as my text comes in, and then there's a filling of the glass sound. So it's three distinct. It's and then
oh man, the
whoosh is someone swinging a ukulele in front of a microphone.
I mean, those sound bit guys, man, they can make a killing though. I remember one guy created his entire pack, and it was like a $10,000 pack, and he just like sat in a closet and made all of it in like his apartment. It was insane. And it was a really good pack, but I mean, I obviously I didn't buy it, but
yeah. But no, I making sound effects is one of the more fun things for me to learn about. Like I love like 80s movies. You're watching the guys with like a 2x4 and a stalk of celery when they're doing the fight scenes, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, getting to do a little bit of that myself, and finding sounds that are just completely unrelated but work in your final product. It's so much fun.
Oh man, I did see a comment up there where they were saying YouTube, when we were complaining about the YouTube algorithm. One guy said, I only watch it with my RSS feeds. And I was like, that's a cool way of doing it. That's how I have a lot of my RSS feeds set up, is all my subscriptions kind of fed into there, and then you can just click on the link to get redirected directly to the video without hitting YouTube. I think that's a pretty good way to do it. I'm getting really into RSS. Have you messed too much with RSS, Jeff?
Not for a long time. Like it used to be the way of finding out when whatever news site that you follow posted a new article on a topic that you wanted, or this or that.
Right.
And then I stopped kind of doing that, and because sites like Reddit and whatnot, Twitter took up a lot of that slack that all the time that I was going, okay, do they have an RSS? Let's subscribe. Let's only pull these articles or the and it's like, if I just follow the right people on Twitter, it's going to be delivered to me anyway. So why even bother?
What I ended up doing, because I got tired, I still like to read a lot of articles, but the articles have gotten diluted down by just some of the garbage out there, and then a lot of the sites are just ad ridden all over the place. So there's two Docker containers I actually use. I have Fresh RSS, and then I have Five Fingers RSS Fetcher, I think it is, and it'll go and grab the RSS feed from whatever site it is, like let's say it's The Verge or something, and then the fetcher will go in and grab the entire article, strip out all the ads, and then just dump it right into my Fresh RSS. So all of my RSS feeds, I never actually have to go and visit the site. It just gives me the entire article, so then I can just scroll through and get today's news in a glance and see every article from every major publication. So it's really kind of a cool way of doing it.
I need to revisit that, because I'm still the kind that I'll wake up in the morning, I'll go grab my cup of coffee, and then I'll scroll for 30 minutes on my phone, and I've got my 10 or 12 sites that I visit on rotation, and I'll read whatever new articles there are. The problem is there's a couple of them that give you one line at a time on a smartphone with an ad in between every single line. And so it's like, is the article done yet? no, it's not. Let me scroll past this auto-playing video and an animated GIF of a Viagra pill, and then, okay, let me read the next sentence. God damn it. Like, constant. And I still visit those sites, and I don't know why.
Yeah. I think that's it. I think once I set all that up, I can get it all in a thing. I did a little quick screen share, just so people in the audience could kind of see a little quick run through of Fresh RSS. But it's such a great tool to do where you can get your, internet of yesteryears, because the raw RSS feed, almost 90% of them are like, here's what we have to say about the Intel 14th gen here, blah, blah, blah. Click to read more. And that's what every RSS feed is from these major sites.
Yeah.
So you have to have the fetcher to go with the fresh RSS. Otherwise the RSS feed's kind of trash.
Yeah. And
that was my fix for it. And it has made it to where I can get all my information quicker than trying to get lost in like Twitter.
I might have to look into that because I was actually thinking about that the other day, that where some sites did make it easier for me to collectively gather my news and whatnot. I haven't been on Reddit or Twitter for months and months. Twitter ever since the takeover is just every fourth follow is now a porn bot, and I don't know if anyone else notices that, but whenever someone follows me, I'll go, oh, who are they? And every fourth one anymore, it seems like, is
well, I think, what was it, the latest drama in that front was he's going to start charging $1 for every user. So that's going to go over wonderfully, I'm sure. So if you want to use it, I'm sorry, you definitely have to pay the $1 a month or something. I was like, what in the world is he smoking?
One of my
Did
favorite
he go visit Rogan again?
One of my favorite responses to that was, if he paid me $1 a month, I still wouldn't visit Twitter anymore.
Yeah. I still load it up every about once every day or two, but it's getting less and less these days. For sure.
I'm maybe once a week, and usually just to check for DMs, because I mean, still, a large number of community of creators and things like that. That's one of the only ways we really have to reach out to each other and talk to each other. Hey, I'm stuck at this part of this review. Are you having this issue? Should I contact, whoever? And
it makes me wonder, do you think like we're going to ever see like, what was it? Blue Ocean, or what is that one called? By
Bluesky.
Dorsey?
Bluesky.
Or there was News, there's Mastodon, there's all these other ones. And then there was the Zuck one, which nobody's crazy enough to probably do that.
Threads.
Oh yeah. Threads. That's it. But yeah, I don't know if I think we're getting out of the era of platforms. Maybe. I don't know if that's really a thing, but it does feel like a lot of the platform culture, people are figuring out maybe being connected all the time to everybody in the world's not a great thing.
Yeah. I think we're starting to see that, especially after being stuck in home for 2 years. That maybe being online all the time, always available, not necessarily the greatest thing for mental health, especially if, even if I don't even consider myself a public figure. Like, I don't get recognized when I go to the grocery store, but I still have 300 some odd thousand subscribers, and my videos are available 24 hours a day. If I wake up and I read every single comment, there's bound to be a couple idiots and whatnot.
Yeah.
Maybe that's not the best way to start your day every morning. And
well, I always joke with people, like, after you've done it for a while, the almost the best and worst thing that can ever happen to you is have like a video go viral. I did a video that just did huge. It was the best web browser, Thorium. I knew it went really big because I walked into a law firm and somebody there was like, "Hey, I liked your video today." I was like, "Oh no,
God,
it went viral. That's not good."
Yeah.
And then you start checking the comments. You're like, "Oh boy, the crazies are out." But yeah, I mean, I still love what I do. It's great. I'm very thankful and grateful for it. But yeah, there's definitely parts of it where you're like, that's interesting.
Yep. Yeah. No, there's some perks to this job. There's some really awesome things about this job.
Yeah.
There's some other things that are just weird that I never thought I would have to consider working a job. So Yeah.
It's really interesting too. Like you can't really just. I'm used to problems, especially coming from the infrastructure standpoint, where I'd be the guy you put in the closet and say, "Hey, fix everything," and you come back in like a day or two, right? So I'm used to being able to just grind things out. If I need to spend, like, I remember one time I was on a job site for 2 weeks and I did the first 3 days almost nonstop with just napping, because it was a data center outage and it was a big business.
Yeah.
And that was, something I could just grind out to get out of a hole. On YouTube, it's really strange because it's all about the quality of the video you do and how it's perceived. That makes it it's amazing, because some weeks you could work very minimal hours and some weeks you could put in 100 hours, and then at the end of the week you have to throw that video in the trash because it's garbage. And you're like,
The other weird thing about this is you could spend 5 hours. My most popular video of all time was 3 hours, concept to filming to editing to publish. And that was my wish.com video. 2.4 million views, I think it sits at today, or something like that. So I apologize for all of the Wish unboxing videos. I kind of started that. But
you're to blame.
Yeah, I am totally to blame. But like 3 hours from like, wouldn't it be funny if, and then I placed the order, and then I waited a month for the crap to come in. And once I had all 4 of the boxes that I had ordered, I unboxed them. And the concept was, I'm going to buy what I know to be scams, but they're selling video cards on wish.com for $1. I'm going to get my 4 packages in, and then whatever comes out of the box, I'm going to genuinely review it. And one of them was a pen. And I said, I guess we'll write with this pen. All right, that's a halfway decent pen. Like, that was the whole video.
Yeah, that's awesome.
3 hours, 2.4 million views, something like 40,000 subscribers within a week. Like, hit huge.
Man.
There have been other videos that I have spent literal weeks of my life developing, writing, gathering hardware, doing research on. 4,000 views.
Yeah.
Like,
I have one where I've pushed almost, I think it's like $1,500 into it. I've been working on it for a little more than a year now, and I don't know if it's ever going to see the light of day. Here, I'm going to share this with you because you're going to laugh.
I can't wait.
I bought a whole bunch of these stupid things, right?
What do you got there?
It was right after the Steam Deck came out, and I was like,
hey,
the
orange pies. Yes,
the orange pies. And I was like, okay, they come with this really terrible system in there. It's not as nearly as polished as is the system in here? No, it's not.
Yeah.
Oh man, what did I do with that? Oh well, it's around here somewhere. But I really wish I had that.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to. Because the Orange Pies, if you're unfamiliar with the company behind Orange Pie, they don't release the core or base distro.
Do you want to name any other products that I literally have within arm's reach? Because this is amazing.
That's awesome.
That's 3 for 3.
But the one thing I hate about like Raspberry Pis and a lot of these micro ones is I don't like the fully bloated distro getting launched with the Linux installs on these things, because they already are pretty minimal. And I got kind of inspired by the Steam Deck, and I was like, okay, I'm going to buy, I think I bought 11 of them. And the idea was to keep one of them and then sell 10 of them once I make the video and load my entire OS and get it configured exactly how it is. Everything's going to be great. You could game on it. You could do everything. And then it's been just a nightmare trying to get in and get the absolute core just Debian server on there, or Raspbian, any version of it on there from just without any of the bloat. So a lot of times you're working backwards, which isn't ideal for making it. But that's just one of my big failures.
Speaking of products that I have very close at hand, I break these out every couple of months. So there was a company, some venture capitalist firm wanted to capitalize on Chromebooks. And so I got one of these. It's a metal shelled, essentially Chromebook. But they were selling them for $100 a piece.
Wow.
And they have a couple really cool features. Now they're x86, they're Celeron N3350. So they're 5 watt, 4 core, 4 thread, 4 gigs of RAM. 15-inch 1080p screens. Really good trackpad, really good keyboard, all metal body. NVMe expansion. There's an NVMe slot in here. It's an X1. It's a first gen X1. What is that? Not the M key, but the B key and M.2 or something like that. So it'll take either a SATA 3.0 drive or a first gen NVMe. And I went, if I could get Linux onto here, wouldn't this make like the ultimate portable terminal serial whatever device? The battery still lasts like 12 hours because it's only a 5 watt chip with a 3 watt screen. But 1080p, good keyboard, good shell.
Yeah.
Let's try it. So they shipped with a version of Chrome OS that is it's a Chromium OS, so it's not the official Chrome OS. That was locked down and you couldn't add in accounts from kids. Like there was some weird restriction that you couldn't authenticate a kid's account on this because they weren't the official Chrome OS distribution. And so Google, protecting the school market, didn't want people selling unauthenticated Chromebook devices and potentially like data harvesting kids and things like that. So they actually restricted that down. But I'm like, well, I wasn't going to run Chrome OS on it anyway. So I tried every Linux distribution I know. There's the weirdest kernel bug with this, and it has to do with the trackpad. You can install Linux on this.
Can't get a trackpad.
Everything works except the pointer. You can't get a pointer on it.
I knew that was coming right as you said it. I was like, oh man, I know where this is going.
Yep.
I've run into that before. I think it was a netbook for me that had the same problem. I think also I had a Wi-Fi go out because it just used a weird chipset.
Yeah.
Which is odd.
This uses a 2-in-1 trackpad that has a fingerprint sensor inside of it. And it's made by Goodix, Goodix or something like that.
No, I never heard of them.
But it's a Synaptics trackpad with a Goodix fingerprint scanner, and apparently I have rooted this thing so far down to find like the individual kernel module that's affecting this. It worked for like half a revision. Like I think it was kernel like 4.17.013 worked after previously not working, but then they revised that one and released, .107, and then it didn't work again. And it hasn't worked since.
Man, I feel your pain on that, man. That's just the worst. I will say though, Chrome OS, I know a lot of people like to hate on Chrome OS, but I actually kind of like it in certain instances where I have a ThinkPad. I know this is completely, hopefully not very many people watch this, but I was on Chrome OS and ThinkPad, and I bought this ThinkPad. It's a $600 Chrome OS notebook, and it was on sale, of course, for $400 or whatever it was from IBM. But it was like a loaded down ThinkPad, and there's a lot of aspects of Chrome OS that get well overlooked. I made a couple videos, but they obviously did just terrible on the channel because nobody cares about Chrome OS.
Right.
But the LXDE and a lot of the containers on Chromebook and how they work, it's really kind of cool tech because you can pass, or I think Google is just doing it in one of the newest revisions of Chrome OS or this past year, where you're able to pass a lot of the graphics directly to that container.
Yeah.
And you could launch like Arch Linux on your Chrome OS and then pass all the graphics to it, and then it could run like Steam and a lot of things directly on that Chromebook, which is super neat. Like I loved that aspect of the Chrome OS. Obviously, it being locked down, and you had Chrome. There's a lot of negatives that everyone always likes to kind of point to, but there are some really cool things about Chromebook that or Chrome OS that I really have kind of geeked out and like it. I really enjoyed just tinkering with.
Yeah, I think a lot of that containerization, specifically with graphics pass-through, came because they're trying to get all the Android app ecosystem to work inside of Chrome OS. And if you wanted to incorporate Android apps, you can't forget games, and you've got to be able to have those games work. And you can't run it in the traditional sandbox that Chrome OS and Android both relied on. And so, they're using containerized, graphics pass-through. It's a really cool tech, and basically a form of paravirtualization that I wish would
make its way over to the Linux realm.
Oh, please,
so
please.
It's gonna, though. It's all there.
Yeah.
It's all there. Like, I've got it working in a Chromebook.
Yeah.
Or it was that in whatever the ThinkPad Chrome OS thing that I gave to my wife.
Yeah.
Because I was like, okay, I'm done with this. But it's really cool, and to see that working, and if I could just get that on my system back here, I'm telling you, man, it would be a game changer for a lot of the Linux stuff out there, because we could pass through almost whatever we wanted. I mean, it's neat. It's neat tech.
Yeah. Second story on this laptop. If I can't run Linux, that was my original thing. It's $100 Linux laptop that you can get on eBay. Like, that was going to be the video, and that was like 2.5 years ago. Was like, well, I might as well at least just put Windows on these and give them out to friends or whatever else. Like, I don't want to just sit on them. The audio driver is some really obscure Realtek driver that runs kind of half as the chipset, and half of it doesn't work inside of Windows. I got it to work with Windows 10 very recently, with the most recent revision of Windows 10, the 21H2. Went to install Windows 11 because I'm like, why would I give a laptop with Windows 10 anymore? The chipset is completely broken in Windows 11.
I've seen a lot of stuff like that. I think on Windows, I think it was Windows 10, which is actually a Microsoft thing, where the Xbox One drivers were really jacked up. I think it was either on Windows 11 or Windows 10. I couldn't remember exactly what it was, but it was the same kind of thing where it used to work in Windows 10, and then I went to Windows 11, and then it was the Xbox One dongle, the first gen dongle with the controllers before they went Bluetooth. Those were great on Windows 10, but you take them to Windows 11, good luck. It doesn't matter what driver you install, you're not getting that thing to work.
Yeah, there's a lot of really weird low-level stuff that just stopped working with Windows 11. And a lot of it is some of the basic I/O, the SDIO, GPIO, USB chipsets. They just stopped working for a lot of outdated hardware, and this was one of those casualties. So Windows 10, I can install and get it running and have all my things working. And in fact, I did end up tracking down an audio driver that worked. That was the only thing that was preventing me from running Windows 10. And I'm like, okay, well, I finally got this. Let me copy the 2 things that I need over here, and I'll install Windows 11, and we'll be good to go. And then I installed it, and there's a list of about like 40 items in Device Manager that aren't present. It's like, come on.
What are you using these days? Are you using like Snappy Driver Installer Origin tool, or what are you using for drivers?
I still go and search manufacturer websites, OEM websites,
and grab them directly from the manufacturer.
Yeah.
So I actually had something happen. I was troubleshooting. My cousin actually had a problem with his computer, and he didn't have a secondary computer. All he could do is reboot his computer into he was trying to swap out his hard drive. So I said, hook up the old computer, get it going. He got that. And I was like, okay, I had to tell him how to get drivers because he had no network driver. And I ended up, I think, telling him there's a network bundle you could throw on a thumb drive called, I think it was 3DP chip, which has a bundled network driver. It's roughly about 150 megs. Threw him to toll that. Said, hey, throw that on there. So he loaded that up, got it going, and then I was like, okay, now launch Snappy Driver Installer Origin, and load all the rest of the drivers. That one's pretty good, and it's open source and freeware. I don't know on the 3DP chip thing. That's a little bit dicey, I know.
Yeah.
But
a lot of them were Intel chipset devices. They were 8086 PCI IDs, and so maybe I'll give Snappy a look on this one, because maybe I'll get lucky. Maybe it's just broken.
Yeah, it could be. Could be.
Yeah. Yeah, it's frustrating to be working on these for like literally 2 years. I'm not even going to get a video out of them anymore, because who cares about a Celeron from 2016?
2 years ago. Yeah, that's probably where I'm at with my Orange Pi 800s. And at this point, I'm like, I don't know. I don't know. I think at this point it's almost a loss. But oh well, live and learn.
Yep. I did realize I did have a super chat a while ago. Michael sent over 10 Aussie bucks. Thank you so much, Michael. Hooray for the vacay crew. Just waiting for @Zoidberg, which I'm assuming he means. Gosh, who's the other Zoidberg over on the Discord? We have like 4 people who use Zoidberg as their profile icons on Discord. Waiting for Zoidberg to be ready to do something dumb with a QNAP and then rum in the after party.
I didn't know people still use QNAP. I'm sorry.
Ooh.
Oh no. I'm sorry.
You won't hurt any feelings with me.
Okay. For those in the audience, I'm sorry if you're still using QNAP. Yeah. I've had some bad experiences. That's where that comes from. No, not too much shade thrown at QNAP, but yeah.
I've recently been going down into some more entry-level server stuff, trying to do some tutorials on things. And so I've been looking a lot more at I don't think I've done any QNAP stuff recently. But I've looked at them
probably
before.
Synology, and you also have TrueNAS and
Synology, TerraMaster, more like the small NAS appliances, like the buy it off the shelf, throw 3 disks in it and call it
just
a day.
Works.
And my problem is they are so under-supported because they want to be so proprietary, and they lock you into their system. It's a lot of this sub $1,500 NAS appliance market is gateway drugs. It is, oh, you liked our product. Oh, you need more than 4 cores now? Like, well, do we have a $20,000 box for you? That's the whole market as it exists today, is simply to upsell you and lock you into their ecosystem.
I don't even mind the lock-in, especially from a financial perspective. I don't really care about that. What I do care about is these are used for backup. And I've had businesses where we had a proprietary system go down. And I worked Geek Squad way back in the day, and when they launched their business department, I was part of that over here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And I was in charge of all the business operations. And that was anytime you go out to most of these things, you run into these weird things. I think we had like a Terra station and those types of things. When they die, though, that's the problem, is you can't just take those discs out and slap it in a new model.
No.
A lot of times that just won't work, especially if there's any big configuration changes. So honestly, if you're relying, like, let's say you put a business on a NAS box and it's a proprietary NAS box, you might want to buy in sets of 2 and think about that, just to have a shell laying around just in case, because sometimes you might not be able to get one. Now, there are some that do a lot better job than others. Like I would, special shout out like Synology. I've had good instances where I have been able to take an upgrade from, like, I think a 4-bay to an 8-bay Synology that was drastically different, and the upgrade went fine. But you got to really watch out for, especially the obscure ones. They'll lock you in, and then if that box dies, you're going to have a hell of a time getting that data off of it.
Yeah. So, that was one of my main points of contention with a lot of these systems is, and I've pointed to Cisco servers in the past too for using proprietary power supplies on what is otherwise ATX hardware. Same thing with HP and Dell, and I've gotten on them as well for, why are you using a 12-pin power connector when your 20 would break out just fine? Like, come on. But if you're relying on these business products for business and it dies, you are locked in with that company for service and support, and you'd better hope that they still support that product when you have a problem. I've made the joke a couple of times that no one ever got fired for buying Cisco, but man, I made a lot of money ripping it out of places when it broke.
Yeah.
So, it's not all bad. Do they work? Yeah, they work fantastically as long as they keep working.
Yeah, until they don't, and that's and then I also like discourage. I really like homemade solutions where you will have control of it. I also caution people against like signing up for cloud services, as we saw like QNAP's example where they had that entire breach happen, and then people used my QNAP cloud and log into systems across the nation and installed a whole bunch of, ransomware.
Yep.
And that was just terrible. That was terrible when that happened. So I definitely I really
SolarWinds
appreciate
with their system management also had that same thing happen just a couple years ago. SolarWinds 1, 2, 3.
Kaseya had a big breach as well.
I forgot about that.
I mean there's a lot of those tied in cloud-based systems, and I'm always cautioning a lot of businesses, you gotta watch out for that stuff because you just don't know, and don't just blindly trust some big company and think, hey, they're on top of security, because a lot of times the first thing to go when those companies are looking for profits is their security. Yep. A lot of times they're like, let's just cut, how much are we paying that guy? What's he do? Does he actually need to be there?
It's kind of like in a lot of government and whatnot, IT is nothing but a cost sector. It's nothing but a department that costs us money, which is why every government office you've ever been into has desktops that are 7 to 10 years old. It's why their servers are 10 years out of date and whatnot. Yep. For IT companies, when they become multinational and whatnot, security is the department that is nothing but a cost sector, because there's no you're not making sales because your security team is better than anyone else's. Right. That's a remediation sector, not a benefit sector. And so you're absolutely right that if it's been a bit of a lean year, maybe not the best time to subscribe to QNAP Cloud.
Yeah. Exactly. Oh man.
Well, we've talked a lot about weird platforms, and Qualcomm actually making kind of a surprise announcement that I wanted to be a little bit more excited for until I read further into the article, and then I'm like, oh, that's cool, but not quite as cool as I was hoping. Qualcomm announces their first ever mass market RISC-V powered Android system on chip. It's an Android Wear device. So close.
No.
So close. Yeah.
Oh.
I found the article and I went, that's so cool. And then I read it all the way to the bottom and it's like, yeah, it's a watch.
Okay. That's sad. I mean, I'm really hopeful for what other people take with RISC, because for those that don't know, when it comes to RISC, it's completely open, and it's not like tied down to one specific company. You can take it and do whatever you want. If you want to open up a chip shop and start cranking out RISC-V chips, you can do it. It's all right there. All the designs are right there. So RISC-V is amazing, and you don't have any licensing fees or anything like that. So I'm really hoping somebody steps in the game and really starts revolutionizing it. And that we're not at the beck and call of AMD and Intel. I would love to see that, or Apple for that matter. I always forget about Apple. Yeah,
I'm trying to remember who it was. Gosh, was it this one? Yeah, we talked about this one just a little while ago. Let me throw this article up so you can see it. There's a company making a 64-core RISC-V workstation in a micro ATX form factor.
Nice.
Runs Linux. Runs a couple different distros of Linux. Supports up to 128 gigs of DDR4. Has dual 2.5 gig networking. Throw it in a micro ATX case and
widely available.
I think so. So it is. It's going to crowdfunding. So I don't know how available. But as creators, sometimes we have a little bit of sway to be able to get our hands on things. So...
True. Yeah, I mean, I'm just fascinated with anything that's like residential, and I can just go out and buy when it's RISC-V.
Yeah,
I do it. It's not going to be the fastest thing. I know it's not going to be faster than the Intel or AMD counterpart or anything like that. But it's just the future that I want to see, and that's why a lot of times whenever I see these things available for purchase, I usually just go out and buy them. Just because I want to see that future with them entering the market and other people taking that as a blueprint. Like everyone was like sleeping on ARM until Apple released like their M1 chip. I want to see that with RISC-V.
Right. Yeah. I mean, there were a couple companies that were all in on ARM. There's Ampere. There's obviously Qualcomm is huge into that, but they've never really shown that you could switch to ARM and have it be a viable platform. It was never good enough because they'd never give it more than 10 watts at a time, or it was a server and it was highly customized bit of silicon for doing one exact task. Apple coming out with the M1 and the M2, they gave us a multi-platform, multi-purpose, genericized ARM chip that not only ran its own software lightning fast, it could run Intel's software as fast as an Intel chip because it had room to run.
Yeah.
So,
man, I tell you, it's cool. Now, do you do any Apple stuff in your shop?
I do occasionally. I have Apple hardware here. I've long time been. I hate I'm either an Apple guy or a Windows guy or a Linux guy. I'm a tool guy. I use the right tool for the job on whatever thing that I'm doing at that point. So I've got a Mac Mini M1 right behind me. That's where I do a lot of my video capture, benchmarking, that kind of thing. I use that system because it's cool. It's quiet. If I'm not doing benchmarking, I can have YouTube up and play, and it works great for that. Out in my garage, I actually have my old trash can Mac Pro running all of my laser cutting for craftcomputing.store. I got to get my plug in. So that's what I run Lightburn and all 3 of my laser cutters on is that old trash can Mac Pro. So
and that's the one thing I always say. Macs are pretty reliable. When it comes to a lot of the things. That's one thing I give them props for. I don't personally like the interface. I don't like the workflow of a Mac, and why do I have to install Magnet to get proper window management? But I mean, there's I
snap,
get why people use it. Yeah, I was like, come on now, how hard is this, Apple? You're a $1 trillion company.
Yes.
You should be able to just make snapping a thing already. Like everyone's just doing the same thing on. But I digress.
I have an app on all of my Macs. I forget what it's called. I'd have to look it up. But it's you can program a keyboard shortcut to do your basically all this different snapping that you'd want. So it's your 50-50 side to side, 50-50 top to top, or you could do your quarter splitting, your quadrants. And it works fantastic. And it makes the Mac actually usable as a desktop interface.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's great. So, I mean, there's just those things. But I am curious to see where the chip architecture goes. And I think I do appreciate Apple for mixing things up and showing people, hey, you can grab something new. Now, instead of grabbing ARM, which I think is owned by nVidia, how about we use RISC-V that's open, that no big company controls?
The nVidia takedown was actually shut down. nVidia ended up having to walk away. Yeah, they ended up having to pay the ARM holders like $1 billion for canceling the deal because it didn't pass any of the securities checks. So, yeah, that was one that was killed.
Okay, that's good.
I think.
Or is it like the Blizzard thing where like Microsoft finally pushed the Blizzard thing through and now they own Blizzard now? I think that happened last week.
February 2022, NVIDIA and SoftBank Group announced termination of ARM acquisition. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I knew they were trying to do it, and I was like, oh, no.
Yeah.
Please. Okay.
And
well, that's not so bad.
Yeah. I thought it was an acquisition that kind of would have made sense. If NVIDIA wanted to basically start producing everything 100% in-house like Apple does, be able to develop your own multi-purpose, CPU processor, as well as, the graphics that you've already got. why not have that in your back pocket as the ability to compete and not be reliant on AMD and Intel, you know, two of your largest competitors, for selling your own products.
Yeah. I get why they were trying to do it, but man, I was like, ugh, I don't know how I feel about all that.
Yeah.
If it were to go through, because NVIDIA hasn't exactly been consumer friendly in the past.
Yeah. It's very true. Speaking of odd platforms, I think we'll go right over the everyone's password is password or admin. We've covered that a lot. Analogue, the company that came out last year with the Analogue Pocket, the FPGA based Game Boy system, not an emulator. Hardware emulation, I guess you could say, using an FPGA to fully emulate Game Boy, Game Boy Advance, Game Boy Color, or read off an SD card and play all of your games essentially on native hardware, but with better hardware. Announced they're getting into the 3D space with the to-be-named Analogue 3D, which is a Nintendo 64 FPGA clone.
Okay. I mean, so here's what I do. I don't know if you might have the same problem as me, Jeff. When it comes to these, I end up buying them because they look super cool, and then I end up getting everything loaded, all my favorite games, whether it's Game Boy Advance and NES and Super Nintendo, and I'm like, yes, this is exactly what I want. Tie it into retro achievements, so I'm getting my achievements. I'm like, okay, I'm going to take this on the road. I'm going to play it all day. It's going to be fantastic. And then I play like 5 minutes, then I'm just like, into the pile you go. And then I go and wait for the next one.
The journey is more fun than the destination.
It totally is.
Getting something working the way that you want, and then just being able to bask in the glory of it working, and you're like, well, now what do I play?
Yeah.
That is the game.
It is.
I've yes. I've got a couple projects which I still do regularly use. I don't know if you've seen my arcade cabinet behind me.
It's pretty awesome.
Yeah, I love that. That was a COVID project with my oldest daughter, and built it completely from scratch. It's running RetroArch. It has basically every game prior to the year 2000 on it. Like, if it exists, it's on there. But there's probably 50 games that we play on it. Now, I play them quite a bit. You know, my daughter will come in. We'll play some Metal Slug or Diddy Kong Racing or things like that, and we have an absolute blast with it. But it's not like I'm taking full advantage of the hardware that's in there and the game library that it has. Very similar. I've built so many, you know, Raspberry Pi RetroArch systems and little consoles and gaming machines and things like that. They're fun
gifts. I give those out to my friends and stuff whenever I make them, and I'm like, okay, here we go. I got another Pi in. Here you guys go.
Yep.
And then, you know, they'll hook them up, and they always are grateful. So I do love. They make great gifts, but a lot of times I set them up and
I've given out dozens of them over the years. Even doing like all the handheld gaming and whatnot, like it is having access to systems like the Steam Deck. It has kind of revolutionized the way I play games. I don't have to sit at my desk anymore. I can be upstairs on the couch and sitting with my kids and you know, enjoying their company while we're all kind of doing other things. But with the Windows-based consoles, I find myself not taking advantage of the power the console has. Rather, I'm spending all of my time trying to find the right front end and getting all my games added to it. So when I turn it on, I can just get right into the game. But then I'll turn it on and go, I don't know what to play today.
Yeah. Yeah. That's I think a lot of people have that problem. You know, they'll load up Steam and they'll just be like, what do I have? But oh man, so many great projects. As far as the password being set to admin, I mean, I always think back to you remember that Hackers movie from, like, I think it was the 90s, and it was like the most common passwords are God and all this other nonsense, and I'm like, no, it's admin and password or the password usually. Or 1 2 3 4.
What was it? love, sex, something, and God were the foremost.
Yeah, that's right. That's what they said it was, and that's so false.
Yeah.
It has never been it.
Not even close. Yeah.
I love that movie because it's straight up Hollywood smoking a bunch
Fisher
of dope
Stevens
and then
lied
making
to us.
a video. Yeah.
Fun fact:
Oh, my
Penn
God.
Jillette is the security advisor in that one too.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It's one of my favorite movies.
I know it's one of my favorites too, but I can't help but hate on it a lot of times when I watch back. I'm like, boy, all right. Oh man.
But yeah, no. So apparently there was this study done where over 40,000 admin portals. So we talked last week about the Supermicro CVEs that came out over their BMCs last week. And the general advice is don't expose them to the internet. You know, have a layer of separation between your management devices with bare metal access to all that you hold sacred, and maybe a thing that can be exploited. It's good advice anyway. Regardless of whether or not there's an active exploit that can be spearphished at someone. But if you do have them exposed, please set a password other than the top 20 that are here, which amazingly enough are always the top 20. Admin.
I thought Let Me In would be in there. That's usually another popular one.
No, there's not Let Me In. Spaceballs still chimes in at number 7 with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Yeah.
We've got password. At least it's got a capital P on it. We've got the classic 6 ones.
Yeah.
So 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. I love the variations. These didn't used to be things until the SolarWinds thing was a thing. I never used to see admin 1, 2, 3, or but
no.
We saw SolarWinds 1, 2, 3, and now all of a sudden 3 of the top 20 are admin 1, 2, 3. Like, who thought that was a good idea?
That's wild. I mean, one, I can't imagine people not using a password manager in this day and age, but two, like, what? I think that's a great point. Don't expose your stuff to the outside world. Yep. Make sure all your ports are closed. People can't get in.
Yep.
And if you do open up a port or you're doing port forwarding to the device, make sure it is very secure.
Yes. Yeah, we're talking, shared certificates or passkey, something other than admin, please.
Yeah, and honestly, these days, man, I can't even, like, my VPS servers and stuff I run. I think I don't have any that have SSH open or can't be accessed without obviously like a 2-factor or SSH key instead of using a password, like a blank password that's or plain text password. That's just crazy to me.
Yeah. But everyone asks me all the time, how do I run all these servers, and aren't I worried about exposing my network or anything else? The truth of the matter is, I only have 2 services that are open ports on my network. One of them is Minecraft in a 100% isolated box because it's still Java. Now, Minecraft has all the securities turned on for that box. I've got...
But those got hit with Log4j. I remember when that happened. A lot of Minecraft servers got hit with that. Yeah.
But that box is isolated from the rest of my network. I can't even talk to that box internally on my network. So if someone gets in, congratulations, you're in my Minecraft world. Grief away. But
did you just do a VLAN for that?
Yeah. It's an isolated VLAN. And it sits by itself. It doesn't even have access to my IoT stuff, which is on a completely separate VLAN. So
nice. How
do I deal with security? I don't open the doors.
Yep, and if they do get in, they're only going to be compartmentalization. I mean, that's one of the key foundations of it. Oh man, what's your thoughts on UPnP? Obviously, don't enable it.
Don't enable it. Yeah,
don't enable it. But I mean, some gamers love that crap. That's one thing I see a lot when residential networks, probably people watching, use UPnP and a lot of the security vulnerabilities that come with it.
Yeah, I mean, there was a time that it was so annoying to go back to early BattleNet days, trying to play Diablo 2 online or anything else. You had to go into your firewall and add port rules to your firewall because basically inside-out communication didn't work with older network protocols. And so if you wanted to run Diablo 2 on Battle.net, you had to open a couple incoming ports so they could authenticate your instance. And that was a thing well into like 2010, 2012 when that finally started going away. Some of it got replaced with UPnP, which is automatically opening up ports on firewalls through various portals and authentication methods. But it's still not a great idea, because anytime you automatically have a device opening itself up to the network, you are inherently trusting that device to play nice, be updated with all of its security patches, play nice with all the rest of your devices. Don't.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. Like, I know some games, depending on what your NAT is, whether it's strict, something like, I think it was like Call of Duty that does a pretty good job of actually telling you what your NAT is, strict, moderate, whatever. But I remember doing a PF Sense setup, and that has some of the craziest rules in setting that up. Is probably one of the best, most secure ways of doing it. But I remember playing, I think it was oh man, it's drawing a blank right now. Is Warframe. That one requires some direct port forwards, because it just wouldn't on any of the PF Sense network that I had set up when I was playing it. I had to port forward, otherwise it just wouldn't. I keep dropping matches anytime I do matchmaking with a friend.
Okay.
So there's still some games that don't do a great job, but the weird thing is, even when I have, like, you can take a Ubiquity or some other ones, and they do a better job of handling where I didn't need to, where on the PF Sense box I did. I still, to this day, I'm like, what does PF Sense do a little bit differently in that respect on how it handles NAT? I was like,
yeah,
but yeah,
interesting. See, there's one last. Well, first off, we got a couple more super chats in. I don't want to forget about them. Ashlyn sends over $10. Thank you very much, Ashlyn. I saw Chris, you waved at her earlier, so hello.
Yeah.
I'm assuming she's one of yours.
yeah. I think it's actually a he.
Oh, he.
And
okay.
Yeah, it's a he, and yeah, he usually hits me up on Twitch whenever I live stream over there on Tuesday, Thursday.
Gotcha. It's always fun having guest co-hosts and going, are they one of yours or are they one of mine that I just don't know yet? But hello anyway. Thank you for watching.
Hikari Knight. Hello, Hikari. Yeah, there's a couple people in chat that I've been seeing.
Nice.
A Bud as well. Yeah.
And then Michael clarifies with another 5 Aussie bucks. Truenass on a QNAP, and he's doing that with Yocto, who is one of our Zoidberg faces. By the way, you got very lucky tonight. So I don't know if you watched my video from today, but I had another ad that ran for Antline Audio. It's the first time this ad has run, and it has I'm talking about the mod mic and whatnot, and put a good microphone onto your headset, and I'm making a joke about, just because you don't have to listen to your crappy microphone doesn't mean your teammates should have to suffer. In the ad, I thought it would be really funny to put on a crappy RGB headset. Well, I have a couple RGB headsets around, but the 3 that I have around, all of them are missing the microphone. And I'm like, I can't talk about the microphone and then not have a microphone plugged into it. That's just really stupid. Yeah. Well, my sister is staying with us right now, and she happened to have a pink Razer cat ear headset.
Oh, man.
So in the video, I put that on. Yocto said, how much for you to wear that for an entire episode?
Oh, man.
And I went, I don't know, maybe if you bought me a small form factor RTX 4000 Ada generation, I'd consider it. So he ordered one. So that'll be here in like a week.
Heck yeah.
So I was going to wear it tonight, but I'm like, let's push it off to next week when John can make fun of me, when my normal co-host is back. So
that's awesome.
Yeah. Otherwise, you were gonna have to watch me wearing.
Yeah, that probably would have been distracting. I'm like, all right, different strokes for different folks. Yeah, I'm not gonna judge.
Yeah. So I DM'd him and I said, "Hey, late audible on the co-host. Can I wear those next week?"
Fun fact, I think my very first YouTube video on my channel, I was using, I think it was a Razer. It was one of those retractable mics that you went into the headset. And for that very first one, I did like a PowerPoint presentation on virtualization because I was tired of YouTube videos not showing like some of the stuff back then. And I was like, but I never pulled the mic out. So like I'm sitting there talking and there's like this constant rattle and it sounds like I recorded it in a garbage can. I'm like, oh my gosh.
Jeez.
The fact that has any views is just shocking to me.
Yeah. Here you go. We'll give you an idea of what this looked like.
Oh, here we go.
So here's the video, and then the pre-roll will start. And it was actually the sponsor of today's podcast, which is awesome too.
Yeah, perfect.
It was Antlion Audio.
They get a freebie here.
Yep. So there's the headset.
Okay.
So make the microphone good. And then I did a nice little focus thing. But yeah, so there's me wearing the headset. So I saved you 2 hours of having to stare at me in cat ears. So.
Oh man, that's great. That's greatness.
But if you want to see it, tune in next week. I'll be wearing them. I'll be rocking those for the entire episode.
That's right. You should just be like, all right, guys, we got to get $100 in super chat to get the pink microphones, or I'll wear a dress along with the pink microphones.
I mean, my humility does have a price. I've never shied away from that.
Yes.
Yakto is thinking about making every October now buy Jeff a weird graphics card and make him do something weird. Because last year he does some data center stuff and he needed some RTX data center cards for doing VDI, which is something that I've worked with quite a bit. He happened to be decommissioning last year a couple of RTX A5000s. And so he sent me one. But in response, I had to drink a pickle beer, which no. Those two words don't belong together. Pickle by itself should not be allowed. But yeah.
I love pickles, but I don't know, man. Pickle beer.
It was gnarly. No. But I have an A5000 in my server rack now, so
hey, that's worth it. That's worth it.
You really can't complain, can't you? And we got one more super chat. Joji sends over to Canadian and says, "Hey, you. Hey, how's it going?" All right, that's a show.
Well, sweet. That worked out, man. Well, thanks for having me on, Jeff. This is great.
Yeah, this was a lot of fun.
You ever need a guest co-host? You know where I'm at. I'm always open. It's great, man. I love chatting with you.
Absolutely. Thanks for joining with such short notice, and that was a lot of fun. It's always a little dicey getting a co-host that you've not spent a lot of time talking with before. You don't know how they're going, like what's their ideas on this topic. How, personality wise,
don't know if they just gone completely crazy on you. Yeah, hopefully I didn't go too crazy. I did work like 10 hours today earlier, and then I just got home, so I might be a little bit under the weather, but
Wednesdays are always a little long for me, especially this morning. So my wife is a little under the weather, and so I had to get up at 6:30 and drive the kids to school. One of our elementary school starts at 7:35, and then the middle school doesn't start until 9, and so we have 90 minutes in between dropping off our two kids, and
oh man,
it's just such a pain in the butt. And we live too close to the school, so they won't let us bus them, which I didn't really want to bus them anyway, because I think my daughter would have to get on the bus at like 6:50 or some crap like that, and then spend 40 minutes on the bus. It's like, no.
That just means you got to wake up at like 5 or 6 a.m. and I'm like, nobody wants to do that.
Yeah, but then I have the show, and so I don't stop working until 8 o'clock. And then after this, join the Patreon, get access to the Discord. You can join us in the after party where we keep the party going. Video chat directly with me and all the co-hosts from Talking Heads. We do it every Wednesday night immediately following the show. If you want, I'll shoot you an invite. You can hop in there tonight. So
sweet.
Or you can go to bed since you're 2 hours in front of me and it's already 10 o'clock. So
I'm a night owl, so hey man.
Anyway, thanks everyone as always for joining. We'll see you every Wednesday night here at 6 p.m. Pacific time for the latest in beer and tech news. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Subscribe to Chris Titus Tech. Links are all down in the video description for his various social medias. And as always,